Sorry. Hey, now you can hear me. Thanks for whoever said that. So let's start that over. So welcome to Energy Automation. So kind of our first webinar where we've focused 100% of the webinar on energy automation, and we're gonna run you through some of the deeper things in regards to energy automation. Megan's going to take us through some of the early stages of Adapt, get some of the new guys kind of caught up on that, and we're also going to be doing some kind of live things and some interactive things. So we're really going to want you guys, throwing a lot of questions at us. This one's going to be a little different than we've done in the past. I'm going to try and leave a lot of room for questions about the Sonnen battery, the technology, energy automation in general. So we do expect to have quite a bit of questions to go over with you guys. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started here. Megan's going to take us through some of the early stuff, and then we'll move forward.
Yeah, so we started development on Adapt in 2012. First project was actually Troy's house, October 2014. We actually launched Adapt at CEDIA in 2015. We're currently at 111 Adapt dealers, 870 plus deployments throughout the United States, Canada, and Trinidad. We have 5 master level programmers on staff, and there's 10 of us all together that are here to help you.
Yeah, so for those of you guys who haven't, or maybe even haven't started with us, because I think we've got some guys that are maybe interested in Adapt and what we're doing. That's some good info for you guys from where we came from. Megan, run us through Adapt 2.0 stuff.
So we just wanted to remind you guys that are currently, excuse me, Adapt dealers that Adapt 2.0 has been released. The new components of that include energy automation. We've added 20 plus driverless sources. We've done updates to our example program. We've done some core updates. We've expanded our list to 100. We've updated our documentation. We've added some NVX support in there. And for all of that good stuff, Joe is doing a technical webinar on the 1st at 11 o'clock Central Time. And if you guys haven't been getting my emails about that, go ahead and reach out to me. My email is down there, and I can get you the registration link.
Yeah, we really want you guys to attend that. Joe's going to do a deep dive on what I think a lot of the questions have been, on the forums and stuff like that. He's kind of wrapping that all up in a nice bow for you. He's going to be talking about how you can kind of do a hybrid approach to upgrades. I know that's kind of a big thing where maybe you don't want to have to go through and do every module. You just want to be able to do the core. There may be ways that could help you guys speed an upgrade along and stuff like that. So we really want you guys to take advantage of that. So get signed up for that and help yourself out there.
And for those of you that don't know, Joe is one of our master level programmers and developers.
Yeah, he's also our trainer. He's definitely a jack of all trades. Guy's amazing. Tons of fun to talk to, and really keeps things focused, staying on point. So good time value when you spend time with Joe. All right. Well, so without further ado, let's hop into energy automation and talk a little bit about smart weather forecast and backup. We're going to talk about smart configurable backup, but we're not today going to talk about smart demand control and load management. We're going to save that one for next time. That one's a little deeper. Once you understand the smart weather forecast and backup, and you understand smart configurable backup, you'll kind of get the smart demand control and load management. But I was kind of afraid I might not have enough time to do everything I wanted to do in this 1 hour that we have together. So I'm gonna save that one for next time. So little refresher for everybody on smart weather forecast and backup. If you've attended an Adapt chat recently, you've probably seen this slide, but I kind of spent a little time on it. This time I want to take a little bit more time with this. I'm actually going to show you some things too in the near future that'll kind of help back this up. So one of the beautiful things about Adapt Energy Automation is that we've written a module that you guys get to use for weather alerts. we're taking this module and this information and we're building it in to adapt in such a way that you guys, my intelligent adapt guys out there, can actually take this information and you can do whatever you want to do from a programming standpoint. Now at CD and SPI, we actually showed smart weather forecast and backup working something like this. When a severe storm is in the area, we actually had the home doing a lot of automatic things based on that severe weather alert. The most important thing to do, and this is an automated thing, and I'll show you guys how to do this as well, that if you want to break in and kind of do things on your own there, you can. But the most important thing is that the battery itself definitely needs to be brought all the way up to 100% for its backup buffer. What this means is we want to make sure that we're preparing the home, right, for a potential outage. That's kind of step one to smart weather forecast and backup. So you kind of take those two things, smart weather forecast, so we're getting information, we're getting alerts, and now we're backing up the devices in the home, and we'll get to some of that. The second thing, like we showed at CD and SPI, is that you can have the home do some things automatically based on this weather alert. So at CD and SPI, we showed something like maybe we're going to pre-cool the home. So we actually dropped the thermostat down, I think 3 or 4 degrees when we had severe weather in the area. It may sound a little strange at first, but when you think about it, especially if you live in Texas like we do, it's hot and you might be out of power for a little while. So what you do is you get the home really cool, because I don't mind throwing on a sweater if I know I'm going to be able to be comfortable in shorts later on if I don't have power, right? So that's just one thing we did. Something else we did when we got this alert was we lowered the shades. And by lowering the shades, we were able to keep heat out of this pre-cooling situation that we were creating. And that was helpful as well. We also lowered the lighting. So any light that was on, we brought it maybe from 100% down to 50%. Seems a little maybe strange to hear that one as well, but when you think about it, you're pre-cooling the home, so you're kind of increasing your energy. You drop the shades all down to kind of help with the pre-cool, but now by lowering the lights, we're kind of balancing. We're kind of getting ourselves back into our normal use of power, because we're really just preparing for something that might happen, even though it might actually not, but we're kind of balancing. And there's a lot of other things that you can do. Here's an example. Maybe you guys are in Colorado and you've got a severe snowstorm. That's an alert, or similar to an alert. We'll look at the actual alerts, but so severe snowstorm coming. Well, maybe it'd be a good idea to go ahead and kick on the snow melt system and make that happen early, so that when it comes, they're prepared. So the beauty of the smart weather backup and forecasting is that if this alert goes away, maybe the severe thunderstorm thing never happened. Maybe everything's just fine and we're all good. Well, that is also something that the Adapt Energy Automation software knows, and you guys will then be able to connect that in Simple, and I'll show you that stuff, where at the end, you just kind of bring everything back to the way it was. And if you're doing daily cycling, which again, we'll maybe get into a little bit more here in a bit, you go from this 20%, like the graphic shows, of normal storage of battery power, and you increase it to that 100. Well, when the severe weather's over, you just bring it back down to the normal, and away you go. So that's just a verbal example of smart weather forecast and backup. While I'm on the topic, I think I got a couple of questions, and I said this was going to be interactive, so let's touch it a little bit.
All right. Can you use smart weather for non-Sonnen installs as well, like at my house?
That's a great question, and yes, you can. Today, right now, the way we've developed the weather part is it's actually separate from the Adapt Sonnen energy automation stuff. So we kind of view that as something that, for lots of reasons, we could use. And I think ultimately this will be an Adapt module, it could be built in as well as separated. Eric and the guys are going to make a smart decision about that for us. But right now, it is completely separate and could be built in. Great question. Any other ones to? Okay.
And if you guys haven't seen the CEDIA video, I'll be sure to send that out in the follow-up email after the webinar. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it is kind of
amazing.
It is kind of neat. Definitely blew some minds, and it was all except for the actual severe weather. Like I had to pretend there was severe weather in the area because we didn't actually have severe weather. So the next thing we're going to talk about, and again, we're going to really dig into this and look at the modules and see how you guys are going to be able to make this stuff work, is the smart configurable backup. Now, the idea behind this smart configurable backup is, first of all, backup needs to be prepared in terms of we got to have storage, right? We got to have the battery, we got to have that thing up to 100%, and we got to be ready for a grid outage. Well, being intelligent about how we're going to configure the home based on an outage is, again, because it's Adapt and it's, well, you guys, there's all this cool stuff you guys get to do. You guys get to decide, what does it mean when the client presses the button that says power essentials only? What does that really mean? Well, it means the essentials, but what's essential to one customer may be not the same for another customer, a little different strokes for different folks kind of a thing. And so we want you guys to have the ability to be dynamic about the choice that you're going to make when you program what smart configurable backup is. Now, eventually, you guys are going to have the ability to control Eaton intelligent breakers. There are other breakers on the market as well. We've been doing some digging around and some playing, and we've actually found some simple breakers that are relay controlled. We also, as you probably all know, have the ability to control Wattbox things and other power things. Anything really that you guys can kind of turn off and turn on, this is what's so exciting, is now a part of what smart configurable backup really means. So the point being, if the battery can power it when there's a grid outage, and you have control of it, a breaker, a light, thermostat, it doesn't matter, it can now become a part of your smart configurable backup profile. Now, you see down at the bottom here, we've got 2 hours and 4 hours and 8 hours. We talked about essential loads. Well, you might have this like in between where you have a few extra things and the essentials, or like in a case where California deals with these a lot, where there's their power goes out for, I don't know, a couple, 2-3 hours. Probably happens 40 times a year. They kind of are used to it. I feel bad for them. Anybody from California here, I'm sorry, that stinks. But in this case, if they had a battery backup system like a Sonnen Ecolinx, it makes sense for them to say, no, man, power all my stuff, because it's only going to be a couple hours, and if we've designed the power profiles correctly, then the battery will power those devices just fine for that few couple 2-3 hour period. So, see, I think we have another question.
All right. So, to my understanding, Sonnen does not support HVAC systems with compressors. Does Adapt have a way around that?
That's actually a fallacy. It's not true. And if I have personally misled anybody, I want to apologize for that, because it was actually my understanding early on that they couldn't do that as well. After spending a little bit more time with one of their engineers at SPI and really kind of digging in, here's what I learned. They absolutely can. They can do 240, in fact. But here's what you got to concern yourself with. Inrush. So the battery itself has a maximum capacity of 70 amps for a short period of time. So let's pretend for a second. And again, this is why our involvement and Adapt Energy Automation is so crucial, because we can stagger the loads in order to make sure that we don't ever put the battery in a position where it's ever going to see more than 70 amps. So this is a really, really neat thing to be able to do. Now, there are certain HVAC systems that are going to draw a ridiculous amount of current, right? So yeah, you do have to be careful and you do have to design properly, but the Sonnen Ecolinx battery and the inverter can actually handle it. As long as we're not, jamming a whole bunch of power right when, so you have to consider when the grid goes out, that 100 millisecond ATS is going to switch over from, no grid power over to battery, and it's immediately going to power all the devices. So we've got to be very quick, as fast as we can about control. And those are the kind of things that we're actually working on right now with Eaton and some of the other breaker manufacturers and just other methods really of making sure that, we can stagger loads and do the right things for the battery, but also for, the client's lifestyle. That was a great thing. I'm glad you brought it up because it was something that I misunderstood early on in my reading and in my conversations with some of the people. So it's good. Other question?
Looks like that was it.
Okay, good. All right. Well, let's go ahead and move on and kind of dig into some of this stuff live. And I'm sure there will be more questions that'll pop up as we go. So the first thing I want to look at with you guys is the weather module. And right now, this is in beta testing. We are working on this internally. I believe the guys will be happy to share this very, very soon. I think it's close. We don't necessarily think this is going to be the end game here, but it is definitely where it's usable. All right. So the very first thing you're going to see here is simple inputs for get weather and get weather alerts. So we've got some forecasting as well as alerts built in. You'll see on the output side when the location, the geolocation has no alerts, this flag will go high for you guys, and you guys can do what you want to do with that. If there is a statement, if you will, in effect, that'll go high. An actual advisory in effect, that'll go high. A watch or a warning, you guys kind of get the idea. And you guys get to make the decision really about how you want to utilize that, those flags and those alerts. Along with that, I wanted to just pull up something that I got this from Keith earlier today. He actually emailed it to me. I just threw it in a Word doc so it's easy to see. But these are some of the alerts. Actually, these might be all of the alerts. As I look at it, there's quite a bit that you guys are going to have available. I mean, we're talking lake wind advisories. We're talking high surf advisories. I mean, all kinds of really neat things in here. Beach hazard statements. Winter storm watch. I think, our friends up north are going to appreciate that. Lake effect snow watch. So as I pop through here, you'll get an idea. One thing Keith did let me know is these right here under this miscellaneous area are not a part of our alerts. There's something different about them. I didn't get time to dig into it with him on it, but if there's something different, it seems to be a lot related to fire and dust and smoke and things like that. So, tornado watch. That'd be a good one to make some smart weather backup stuff happen for. So anyway, so this is the weather alerts that you're going to be watching for through the module. There is an alert selection area. Now, what this is going to allow you to do is get further detail about the alert. So the alerts will come in because there could be more than one. I mean, if you got something real serious going on, you got a flood alert, you got all these other things. Well, you can actually on the touch screen just touch whichever one, and we will give you further details about that alert that you guys can actually put on the touch screen. I see a few questions, so before I move on, I want to make sure we get those.
Can we use this weather alert module in a system without Sonnen?
Absolutely, yes, you can. Today, that is the case. I think like I said earlier, I think we're going to build it into Adapt Energy Automation so that it's really simple to just drop in and go. But there are cases, I think, where people may want to be able to just use the weather alert. So that's a good question. Any other questions?
Not for now.
Okay. All right. Cool. The last piece of this is current weather. Look, guys, we all use Crestron's weather widget and whatnot. I use it. They're on our touch screens. It works quite well. It's kind of neat. But I think I learned recently that their weather service was broken. And I was surprised by that. I think my guys told me that actually today in our production meeting. So this could definitely become a lot more useful for all of us in terms of just getting the weather data and information that we need. And so we are going to be doing some forecast information as well, so that you guys can put it on the touch panel, show it if you want to, or maybe I don't know, maybe you want to do things to the house based on some of that information. But really, I think the alerts are better for that. Other questions?
All right. Is there a way to test alert conditions and selection extra data without an actual alert?
So yes and no. The answer is there's a way to test, but not without actual alerts, because this is real stuff and it works. So I played with this for the first time early this morning, and I said, Keith, I want to test it. So how do I do it? And he's like, man, go to weather.com and find some place that's got some nasty weather. and that's what I did. I went, I found, it was actually Houston, I think. They were getting a storm and everything. And so I did that and put in the geolocation information. And the good news, so I'm actually glad that you brought that up, is that you guys can actually create a situation where you can search for that, meaning you could, on the front side of this module, do something to do geolocation search, because we do have a serial input where you can just slam geolocation coordinates into there and hit the update location, and it'll go ahead and go out and get that data. So that's the best way to test it. So good question.
All right. Is there a way to get notifications before a rolling brownout occurs? Does the utility offer this information?
Utilities, to my knowledge, don't. In fact, the utilities use the exact same service that we use right now. And this happens to be something the utilities are really, really looking for. So here's my thought on that. If you truly want to be ahead of the game, if you will, on a severe weather situation, you want to look at maybe surrounding areas as well. And there is a way to do this. You can, with the update location input, you can put 4 or 5 different key areas around and be notified. I think maybe, obviously depends on how fast this thing's moving and what's going on, but you could be notified faster in that way. To my knowledge, we're still relying on the National Weather Service and NOAA to be ahead of the game for us in terms of the data that we're pulling. So, maybe they get a little better about it, but yeah, we're kind of dependent on them. But that was, I like that one.
Let's see, non-smart graphics Crestron weather module is broken.
I'm sorry, say that again.
The non-smart graphics Crestron weather module is broken.
Yes, that is my understanding. You might want to confirm that for me, but it is my understanding that that is the case. I'm sure they'll take care of it. You guys know how this stuff goes. I'm sure they know, and they'll get it figured out.
Is the parameter just the default as fallback to the new _ geolocation?
So I believe the question is, if I update the new location serial input, does it fall back to here? I don't have the answer to that. That's a great question. I will get that answer for you guys. I think that's probably what is it? Yeah, I got you guys. We'll get that information to you. I'll have to ask Keith.
How do you recall the default location at runtime?
really at that point, I think what I would do is I would just go ahead and do it outside the module. This is obviously where the thing's going to start up. But if you deviated in terms of another geolocation, I think what I would do is I would put a default in there on a serial I/O and force it to be the same as the parameter, and then you're covered. So I think that's probably the best way to do that.
All right, that's it.
Okay, excellent. Well, we're going to go ahead and move on and do a quick demonstration of this. Some of you may have seen this before, some of you may not have seen this, but here is my Sonnen Ecolinx battery. This is a real live system. I've got a simulated weather event. Obviously, you see there, it's nice and sunny here in Texas right now. But we'll simulate that. But before I do that, I did want to make sure. Okay, so I do have my backup buffer set to 20%. Now, my house, the use of my battery is strictly for backup. So normally, I'm going to just be here. But I want to show you just some of the automated nature of the energy automation in Adapt. And this would normally be done when the customer is maybe in time of use mode or multiple time of use, and they're doing this daily cycling operation of the battery, where what we're doing is we're either taking stored sunlight from solar or taking grid power when it's inexpensive during the day, and then we're going to store it in the battery, and then later on in the evening during this peak time, which might be between 5 and 9 p.m., we're actually going to use the battery to power the loads instead of the grid. So this is going to actually save the customer money, especially people like in California and on the East Coast, and they pay upwards of 40+ cents a kilowatt hour during peak time. That's compared to the off peak, which is 10, 12 cents a kilowatt hour. So it puts the client in a position where they can pretty much just pay the 10 to 12 cents a kilowatt hour if they don't have solar. If they have solar and they're using stored sunlight, then you store that sunlight and you load shift or kind of use the solar power later on in the day during that peak time. So that'd be kind of the normal use of a time of use situation. Me, on the other hand, I'm backup, but you see that I'm gonna leave the backup buffer alone. We'll go ahead and simulate this weather event and see what that looks like. So now this thing's telling me, hey, we got severe weather detected. Do you want to set the backup buffer to 100%? Yes. Now I'll pop over and you'll see, hey, we're now at 100%. And again, like I said earlier, you guys can program all kinds of things to happen when a severe weather event occurs, and it could depend on the alert, right? I mean, if, like I said earlier, if it's snow, you may want to do the snow melt thing. If it's severe weather where we think we're going to lose power, then we maybe do some other things. So it's all about you guys and your abilities to design the energy automation system in the right way for the customer. And a lot of times it's going to be based on the customer. It's also going to be based on location. Okay, so when that's over, this can return back to 20%, and away we go. In my case, I leave mine, like I said, at 100, but that's the idea. Now, let's just say for a second, the customer does not want any interaction, because that's going to be a possibility for you guys too. There's absolutely no reason why you couldn't come up with a default power profile situation for when severe weather is detected. Just always do these things. The customer knows that's what you're going to do, knows what the house is going to do, and everything's cool. And that there's nothing wrong with that. You don't even have to pop anything up on the touch screen. You don't have to ask them any questions. We did something at the show where we kind of flipped this around a little bit. And instead of asking the question, would you like to set the Ecolinx backup buffer to 100%, we actually asked, would you like the house to do some things as well? And that was the yes or no. So the default was, yeah, obviously set the backup buffer to 100% to prepare, but maybe we do or we don't want to do stuff to the home, like doing the shades or lowering the set points of the thermostats, or in some cases you could be raising those to turn on the heaters and so on and so forth. So I'm gonna stop here, see if we got any questions.
Keep it coming, guys.
Nothing yet? Okay,
Yeah.
good enough. Awesome. While I'm on this page, I want to just explain what everybody's looking at in case you haven't seen this before. So you see the Sonnen battery in the middle there, all right? Down below, you see a little green online. That means that we are communicating with the Ecolinx battery. We do have communication with the battery. Obviously, the bar down below with the little battery icon next to it is the battery life. So I'm at a full 100%. And then based on the consumption of the home, you see on the right where that blue line is, I have an estimated time remaining on that battery of about 8 hours and 10 minutes. There's a real quick and easy calculation to go through when you're looking at the batteries and power. You'll see here that I've got a 10 kilowatt hour battery. So I've actually got 5 modules or 5 battery modules in this thing. I could go up to 20 kilowatt hour, which would be a total of 10 battery modules, but I've only got 5. And so the simple quick math is 1,000 watts for 10 hours or 10,000 watts for an hour in my exact case. And then you could take that and extrapolate it to, you know, the 20 kilowatt hour battery. And that's how you kind of start to build a power profile. When we get into the smart configurable backup, we'll talk more about that. Last thing I wanted to talk about is just the grid. You can see that the battery is consuming whatever 1,100 watts or so from the grid, and the grid is connected, meaning that we have grid power. There's actually situations where we will have grid power, but we're not going to actually take power yet, and we'll touch on that here in a minute.
All right, going back to the weather module, any chance you could update it to use zip codes?
That is a great question. I actually wanted the same when I started playing with it, so we'll look into that. I think there is a reason why we did geolocation, but we'll definitely see if that's a possibility. I think it could be a good idea. Yeah, good question. Okay. Well, I'm going to move us on now to look at the actual Sonnen Adapt module. And then we're going to talk about some smart configurable backup. Bear with me. Here we go. Okay. So the Sonnen Ecolinx battery in Adapt is considered an other device. So in this system, you'll see it's other device 11. We have an Adapt other device Sonnen Ecolinx module. Now, the module that you're looking at here is 100% like done and ready to go, and you don't have to connect anything to achieve what you're seeing my battery doing in terms of giving you the information about what's going on. I have this backup buffer input in use because I'm actually doing some things based on the weather, right? So when I say yes, this battery goes to 100%. When I say no, it stays at 20. Now, a lot of that's simply for demonstration because like I shared with you guys, mine's, you know, a backup battery right now. It's 100%. I am getting solar soon though. So that's going to be really exciting, and I'll be able to share some more with everybody about how I've incorporated solar and what I've done there. And again, that's probably going to be another webinar or maybe 2 or 3 because, you know, I really want you guys to learn as I'm learning and have all the information I have. So simple stuff, right? We have our device number. That's pretty basic. I think everybody knows that. If you're an Adapt guy, you know that. The address, IP address, port number, weather zip code. Now, this is used for, and I need to be clear, this is used for this icon right here. I'm 99% sure. Now, there's a possibility that we're going to be able to incorporate that into the weather module, and I think that's kind of the goal and what we're gonna try to achieve, to build everything all in nice one little wrapper and, you know, put a bow on it and give it to you guys in a real fast way. You also see the slow pull time and the fast pull time, and you'll also notice they're the same for me. Now, the slow pull time is basically well, the slow pull time and the fast pull time is relative to in use. Meaning, if I'm physically on the page, I'm going to do fast polling so that, you know, I get updates every 10 seconds maybe, or whatever, every 5 seconds. If I'm not on the page, the Sonin Ecolinx adapt module is going to revert back to the slow poll time. So that's how you're going to use those. And then, of course, we have our init, which you guys again are used to from an adapt standpoint in the adapt modules, and you have a program is ready input. Now, what I chose to do is I chose to go ahead and run that through a buffer, and the reason why is I want to have the ability in debugger to, you know, turn that on and off, and that would be the only reason to do that. So now that you've seen this module, let's go ahead and talk about the touch screen a little bit, because tying those two together will be quite helpful. All right. So first page I want us to look at is the main page. Now, the reason why I wanted to go into VT Pro here with you guys is because there's a few things on my physical touchscreen that you don't see that actually are there. So, like peak time active, peak time 1 active, peak time 2 active, low tariff time active, and actually I see those are the same. That's a copy and paste error on my part. Anyway, and then 0, so really this doesn't have to be here. And then 0 export time. These guys normally, and I spread these out, but these guys normally are all stacked on top of each other so that you know, they all show up in one place because they are mutually exclusive. And we normally put them down here. Obviously, guys, it's adapt. You guys can do whatever you want. You can put it wherever you want. You can, you know, have fun, right? But these guys are relative to these things. So if it was 5:05, I would actually see that my peak time is active. I'm in peak time, right? So that flag is going to go high. It's physically going to be on the touch screen. And again, you guys could actually take this and put this on the main page if you want to, like maybe put severe weather mode on the main page. I mean, it's up to you guys how you guys want to make that work. The other thing is multiple times of use. So you have peak time 1, peak time 2, same thing applies. If, you know, it's between these hours, you will see that flag and it will show up. And again, there's nothing that you guys actually have to do in terms of connecting all of that in Simple Windows. It's simply going to just be there. You'll have to know the join number, obviously, and you know, I have my join numbers turned off, but you guys can see that, you know, there's the join numbers there. Just looks a little muddy when I do that. So any questions about any of that so far?
There are not.
Okay. Again, if I had PV or a solar system, you would see this grid and you would actually see the production information. So again, it's something you can't see on mine because I don't actually have the solar. So that's the main page. The settings page is something that's kind of where the settings start, if you will. And then you will populate inside of this area based on backup, self-consumption, TOU, MTOU, 0 export, so on and so forth. But you guys get the ability to, you know, not have to deal with all that basically because we've already built it in. So like here's the manual charge mode. It's probably tough to see, but that's the manual charge mode where you can actually adjust the charge rate. Happens to be something most customers would never do. So that's another thing that I think I was talking to one of the engineers at SPI, and we were just kind of going through the touchscreen and looking at some of this stuff. And he said, you know, I kind of feel like these guys just don't need to be there at all. The customer never will do that. It's just not something they would ever do. Totally cool. We get it. We understand. Man, if you guys want to take the buttons off, you remove the buttons, slide this thing over, and away you go. So, you know, you get some flexibility there. Of course, it's VT Pro. Let's see, let's talk grid loss. So when a grid loss occurs and the utility grid is down, this page will go high and is set to join number 415. So my expectation for you guys is you won't have to do anything to make this occur. So having the page pop up, you're not going to have to do anything but obviously, use the example program where all these pages exist, put the module in, the things that you'd expect to have to do, and it's just going to work. However, the next step, meaning what's going to happen when one of these buttons is pressed, or maybe doing a default and never even popping this page up, like we were talking about earlier, that could be something you may want to do. All possible, but how you actually handle these different power profiles is up to you guys and what you guys want to do in Simple Windows. So again, back to our Sonnen Ecolinks module. Here is your off-grid flag. Okay, so once that off-grid goes high, you then are going to use a buffer or some method, however you see fit, to decide, or maybe it's just one thing and that's it. But that's one way to do it. Let me show you the better way to do it. And this is where it gets cool. This is where Adapt Energy Automation gets fun. So built into Adapt 2.0 and inside of System Manager, we now have a new automation tab with an energy tab at the top. There will be more added to this, I can assure you. This was just our first step and a step in the right direction. However, we know you guys want it easy, but we also know you want it flexible. That's why it's Adapt, right? You want the quick stuff, but you also want the power. We've given that to you. So when a grid loss occurs, you guys get to simply go here and turn all the AV off, turn the climate off, select a specific lighting global, right? So you can do entertain or whatever you want to do. Same thing with the windows. And furthermore, you guys can do custom things. And that's what really is exciting to me. So really, you're just giving it a join number and a pulse length. That's it. That's all you guys have to do. And then, of course, whatever you had tied in Simple Windows to that button number is going to happen. And you have those 3 options, right? And so that kind of correlates directly to what you see here. So you also have the grid restore. So when the power comes back, what do you guys want to do? Some people may not want to do a whole lot. Some people may not want to bring all the audio video back on. Some people may want to, not do anything to the lights. But if we're starting to control breakers and we're starting to do some relay things and we've turned off the water heater and we've turned off the stove and the dishwashers and all this stuff, well, we may want to be bringing those back on based on, restore of grid. So again, ultimate flexibility for you guys, and there will be more things added to this area. I think we have a question. Let's go ahead and answer.
All right. Have we looked at what, if anything, you can do for managing use during alert times with Crestron Lighting, D3 Pro, or with SMW?
Yeah, so the question is, let me see, have we looked at what, if anything, you can do energy use during alert times? Oh, okay, yeah. So look, that's the ultimate place we're going. That's really ultimately what we want to be doing is we want to be making the stuff faster, better, but it's going to come down to us learning more about typical use cases, if you will, and how we can manage use a little bit better. So take D3 Pro. Well, if I was doing D3 and I wanted to have the flexibility, I'm going to be doing an RSD, a dedicated RSD with just the analogs for the lighting, and that's how I would then build what's going to happen with the lights type of a thing when a severe weather occurs, right? that would be one method, if you will. But yeah, those are definitely things that we're trying to still wrap our minds around in terms of how we're going to make that easy and then also very flexible. So that was a great question.
Where do the buttons 121 through 420 get asserted in SMW?
So question, where do the buttons 121 and
Through 420.
through, yeah, that's these right here. These are other device settings, meaning like as far as I remember, we're doing that on the output side of an other device module. So I'm going to get some clarification on that one because I haven't actually had to do that yet in my own home. I haven't physically done it, but I do know that it's supposed to be very, very simple. So that's a question I think Joe is going to go over in ADAPT 2.0. Kind of some of the more detailed programming things, but that's a good question. I'm sorry I can't answer it, but that's just because I haven't physically done it myself. So apologize for not having that answer, but yeah, that it is a good question nonetheless. Let's see. One last thing I wanted to do for everybody is show this in real life, right? So I'm going to go ahead and pull up my X panel, and we're going to do a live demonstration of this so we can see what that looks like. Bear with me. I thought I had that open already. I must have closed it on accident. I think I did. All right.
Great questions, guys. Keep them coming.
Yeah, those are awesome. That's what this is for right here. Exactly. So GoToMeeting is always so fun with XPanel. I think they're both resource hogs. All right, good enough. Okay, so what we're actually going to do, actually before I do this, let me share with you guys that 1,120 watts that you see that my home is consuming, what it really is made up of is that rack of equipment. Inside that closet is also my router, a couple of NASs, my Fusion EM server, which I don't know, maybe we'll get some time to spend looking at this stuff, but point being, pretty much the whole system except for my Swamp amplifiers. I did not put those on the battery, as well as my 2 refrigerators and my freezer and my kids' bedrooms and my kids' bathroom lights and my family room and the fan and the lights. And so when we have a power outage, I can literally sit down in my family room, pick up my 302 remote and turn on Kaleidoscape and watch a movie, and it's kind of surreal, to be honest with you. It's very neat. So we're gonna go ahead and actually do this. I'm gonna you want to go flip it?
Absolutely.
All right, so Megan's going to go flip the breaker. And while she's doing that, if you have any other questions, now's a great time. Take her a few seconds to get into the garage and flip that breaker. So what's actually going to happen while we're waiting is within 100 milliseconds of losing power, the breaker is going to trip. I'm sorry, the ATS is going to flip over, and that's going to immediately take us to battery power. And then because we're polling every 10 seconds, we might see it happen real fast. We might see it happen in a couple seconds. So that's the grid is down. Guys, what you just experienced is an online webinar that happened during a power outage. And we're fine here. Everything's good. We're live. We're up and running. Everything's just peachy. I'm going to say, let's just power all the devices. You'll see here that we're completely off grid at this point. Our battery is discharging at just about the same rate that the home is consuming power, or the devices, I should say, the load on the battery is consuming. Got about 7 hours, 55 minutes left. And if we just hang out for a few, we'll start to see this thing, going down. And you will also see your daily autonomy number go from 0% to 1%. And then it will continue to raise. Let's go ahead and flip. Let's go ahead and flip the breaker back and bring power back. Yeah. And guys, I got to tell you, bringing a customer over here and sitting them down and just turning off the power to the house and putting them in this position is probably one of the best demonstrations you could ever do. It is surreal. It's amazing. What a wonderful feeling to be resilient to the loss of power. It's pretty exciting. And again, super proud to be involved with Sonnen and what they're doing. And there's so much more to this, guys. I can't wait to start talking to you guys about VPP, what that means, and about the utility grid and how we're going to be helping. It's pretty exciting. So you just noticed that we are now connected to the grid. That does not mean, however, that we are actually taking power from the grid yet. This is a really cool thing for us and our customers, but also a necessary and required thing based on UL and IEEE requirements. The reason why we're not taking that power is because we have to wait 5 minutes before we are allowed to accept power from the grid. And what the Sonnen battery is doing right now is it's actually looking at the stability of the power itself. It's looking at frequency and things like that. And if everything's in line and everything checks out in 5 minutes, that's when the ATS will flip back over and put us back on grid power. Here's why that's cool for our customers. They spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on equipment, lighting systems, modules in panels. I've got a house in the Turks and Caicos that I think we probably replace, I don't know, maybe 10, maybe 12 modules a year, just because the power is so nasty and dirty. And even generators, nasty, dirty power, and all of a sudden these little microprocessors are just getting really frustrated. Well, the Sonnen battery, because it's paying attention, right, to that grid stability, if at any time the grid is acting a little wonky or we're not getting that clean power we'd expect to get, boom, ATS, and you're on battery power. So in a great way, we're able to tell our clients not only are they going to be resilient to a power outage with all these devices that are connected to the battery, but their devices are also going to be protected against a dirty, nasty power situation where, I don't know, brownout things and or other situations. Oh, you know what? I don't know if this will work, but I'll try. This is really cool. I don't know how well you guys can see that. Okay, yeah. Does everybody, can you guys see the voltage on phase A? That's actually a picture I took. Phase A, phase B voltage, you see how low that is? I had a situation a couple of weeks ago where a transformer blew, and it took them, my power went out 24 times. That's another picture, different. And it not only did it go out, it went out, it came back on 5 minutes later. Then it went off, then it went on, then it went off. It was just nutty. I finally just flipped the breaker and said, you know what, I'm just going on straight battery power because, I was tired of hearing the ATS flip. But the reason why I bring this up is this voltage is something that the Sonnen battery looked for. So we were already good. Every time it saw the voltage drop like that, the ATS kicked over and we had power. It was just dirty. It was really low. It was out of spec. And so yeah, we were covered. I was on the phone with you when this was going on. That's right. So anyway, super cool to not only be resilient but also protect the assets of a customer. So any other questions?
All right. What does daily autonomy indicate?
Daily autonomy indicates it's a relativity thing against how much power you are using versus how much battery you're using in a 24-hour period. I'm going to be completely straight with you and tell you that while that number is nifty, I haven't seen that number makes sense until you're in a self-consumption or daily cycling mode. Because if you're in daily cycling, you're going to be, during peak time, which might be 4 hours of a 24-hour period, that starts to make a lot more sense against, meaning, so 24 hours being 100%, right, or 0% depending. I think that's the way that really works. Eric and I had a discussion about this one, and even he and I just kind of went on a couple of things we threw at it. So we're actually talking with Sonnen a little bit more about how we can tighten up the math on that one and provide a little bit better understanding for the customer relative to what that means for their use anyway. So that's a really great question. So I just heard the ATS switch, and you'll see that we will be feeding for a split second, and then because of the polling time, you're going to see that it takes a moment, and here we are. So we're now back to taking that grid power and consuming, from the grid, but also the battery, consume, or the house consuming directly from the grid. Something else that you'll notice, and this might or might not happen, this is also an interesting and cool thing about the Sonnen battery. Your Sonnen battery is going to charge at a rate relative to where it currently is. My battery is at 98%. Now I have it set to, charge to 100. But what we don't want to do is be cycling off and on, our charging all the time, like off on, just because of a 1% or 2% differential. So in this case, it's probably not going to charge. If it dropped down to maybe 97 or 96, what you would see is probably charging at around 300 watts, which would make my current consumption from the grid 1,384 watts, even though the home is only using, a little over 1,000. So that's another just beautiful thing about the Sonnen Ecolinx software and the technology that they've built. And the other thing that I just want to say about this company, you guys know us. Some of you guys know us. Some of you guys are getting to know us. One thing I hope you've learned about Pantech Design and about our choices for Adapt is that we are very careful about whose devices we write software for. We do not have an expectation that any manufacturer is going to be perfect. We can't be perfect. How can we expect anybody else to be? But what we do look for are companies that communicate well, that listen to us and allow us to understand them, who, they share things with us, we share things with them. My absolute favorite thing about Sonnen has been the relationship between our development guys and their engineers. So along with that, they're actually making changes right now to their API to, just make it even faster, make it even better. We have to make a few different API calls to get some of this data. That's going to change, and we're gonna have things done even a different way, where we may not even have to do any polling at all. And so it's a wonderful thing to work with a very forward-thinking, innovative, but also great company.
Fantastic company to work with.
Yeah, we just had a ball with those guys at CEDIA and SPI, and I've got some great relationships with them. Megan's got great. If you guys are ready to get into energy automation, we can hook you up with the right people. One of them, and you're going to love her, Jessica Weiss. I have a little nickname for her. I call her the CEO of Spunk. She's just incredible. And so we'll connect you to her, and she can get you guys set up so that you guys can start buying the battery technology from Sonnen. I'm going to leave you with one last thing. There's only one way that I've been able to do this webinar for you guys with this level of information and knowledge, and that's because I made a choice and I put it in, and I learned, and I play, and I've grown to appreciate the technology at that level because of that. I'm going to challenge you guys, if you really want to get into energy automation, you really want to do it at this level and more, I want you guys to put one in, because it's until then, or not until then, will you be able to really grasp, I think, everything that goes into this. I didn't necessarily have to read a whole bunch of books to get here. It was a more of a, reading the manual and playing around with some of the things that we're doing with it. So challenge you guys to do that. Guys, it's been an hour. It's been a fun hour. I don't see that we have any more questions unless somebody wants to throw one out right now. We're going to call this first Adapt Energy Automation webinar done. And really appreciate you guys being here. Megan, you got anything for them before we go?
I think that's it. Feel free to reach out to me if you are not getting my emails. But I will be in touch. And then also there was the Adapt Energy Automation handout. You should be able to see that on the side of your screen there that you guys can take a look at. But I will send that in the email, the follow-up email as well.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you guys very much. We really appreciate your time and recognize the value of it. And we're thankful to have had the opportunity to share a little bit more about Adapt Energy Automation.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.